From this day on, Sydney would no longer be just a prison. It would be transformed into a colony with a future. Nepean also wrote a set of instructions that has only recently been unearthed.
The service of the unfortunate women on board the Lady Juliana will be transferred to you. Upon their landing, you will promote a matrimonial connection between the unmarried people, a measure which must lead to the improvement of their morals and is indispensably necessary for securing the general peace and happiness of the settlement.
In its hull, the Lady Juliana could hold approximately 225 convict women, but filling it would not be easy. Though there were 150 women in Newgate jail, not all were deemed appropriate for the voyage. The government wanted good, solid breeding stock. Officials scoured the country jails. In the county of Devon, one of the women they found fit the bill exactly. Her name was Anne Marsh. Little is known about her crime, other than that she was sentenced to 7 years transportation for stealing some wheat from a local farmer in Devon. Five hours drive west of Sydney is a 4,500-acre farm. It is run by Anne Marsh's descendant, Delia Dray.
Well, I don't really know very much about the convict ancestors as such until my mother started researching our family history. And then that was when it was discovered that we did actually have one or two way back in the cupboard. I can understand with my mother's generation and in her family and probably her parents that there would have still been a lot of social stigma associated with being, you know, descended from a convict, tainted blood, all that sort of thing. I don't think it matters today, but I think a lot of people are interested about the hardship that those people faced.
The manifest of the Lady Juliana, compiled in 1789, still exists in the State Library in Sydney. Delia has requested a copy.
It's a list of female convicts, their names and their ages. So, for example, Hannah Bolton, 18, from Warwick, and Mary Warren, 18, from Lincoln, Sarah Whitlam, 19, and here we have the Exeter, and there's Anne Marsh, 21. Obviously, these would have been women still very much of childbearing age with their life ahead of them. Mary Bateman, a 15-year-old. Mary Lewis, a 16-year-old. It's just like grinding away here with these, gathering all these young women from all over the countryside.
The government was handpicking women of breeding age to send out to Sydney. But just because they were of age to have children did not mean they would simply become docile wives for the men of the colony.
These were not going to be respectable mothers, they were not going to be creative homemakers, and they were not going to be reliable at all. These are those feisty women that we've met time after time in the courts. These are these opportunistic thieves with no sense of delicacy whatsoever.
It would take the government 5 months to gather its consignment of young women for the Lady Juliana. As they waited in the Thames estuary, the women were kept in miserable conditions, deep in the ship's bowels.
The orlop deck is directly above the bilge, and the bilge is the very bottommost part of the ship, and it's the drain of the ship where all the water and the detritus and the crap ends up. Stuff from the kit from the galley, dead rats, dead cats, bits of old rotting fabric, all the nastiness of the ship would find its way right down to the bottom and stay there because it was almost impossible to clean the bilge out.
What the convict women had to say about their conditions was never recorded. But Delia has found a gateway into their world. A unique memoir of the voyage was left behind, composed not by one of the women, but by John Nichol, the man who unshackled their chains.
In 1789, I was appointed steward of the Lady Juliana, commanded by Captain Aiken, who was an excellent, humane man and did all in his power to make the convicts as comfortable as their circumstances would allow.
There were not very many bad characters. A great number were for petty crimes. The colony at the time was in great want of women.
He writes about the ship, the women, their crimes, their characters, from an entirely different angle from that of most commentators, who see them as a sort of homogeneous mass of badness and evil and sin, who need to be sent out of the country. And John Nichol, who talked to them and knew them as individuals, writes with great respect and great compassion.
One of the convict women, a young Scottish girl, I have never yet got out of my mind. She was as pale as death, her eyes red with weeping. My heart bled for her. I lent her my Bible to comfort her, but she read it not. She laid it on her lap after kissing it, and only bedewed it with her tears. At length, she sunk into the grave of no disease, but a broken heart.
The death of the young Scottish girl left a vacancy on the ship. At Newgate Jail, just about the only female prisoners left were those awaiting the gallows, like 11-year-old clothing thief Mary Wade. Over 2 centuries later in Sydney, Megan Benson has been combing the archives trying to discover what happened to her ancestor. Fortunately for Megan, one of the world's most valuable